Oh, to get people's attention, I could always do the clap.
Just start.
Is that obnoxious?
Just start.
There,
Just start
I'm going to
talking.
just start. Good evening. I would like to, good evening. I've been with kids all day. I'm ready to do the. Good evening. I would like to call to order the meeting for Tuesday, July 18th. May I have a second? Do I need a second?
You gotta approve.
Oh, I need to approve the agenda. It's my first rodeo. This is my first or second rodeo. And you have before you an agenda. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Comments from the public? Seeing none, we will move on to the superintendent's report.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. I have a few updates just in general about enrollment, hiring, and a couple of other things. So normally we would have an enrollment report for you in July, but we don't. And the reason why is because summer school is open in Aspen, and until summer school is finished, we are not able to roll over last year to this year. So we will not have any updated enrollment for this year, but you will get an updated report after August 10th when school committee is over. Not school committee, I'm so sorry. When summer school is over. So we'll make sure you have that report after August 10th. Hiring update. So first of all, I want to welcome 4 new administrators. Some of them are in the audience and some are not. So first of all, I want to welcome Becky Janda, who is with us. She is our new Nantucket Intermediate School principal. She is replacing Eve Marie McNeil. We have Chip Clooney, who is our new Director of Facilities and Grounds, replacing Diane O'Neill. We also have Michelle Cadavid, who is coming to us as the new Coordinator for Special Education. And finally, Barbara Cohen, who is our new Director of English Learners. We are very thrilled to have all of them join our team, and we feel so much better having that complete team almost. We have one more to go, and that's our Curriculum Director for Humanities, but we are interviewing and have a promising candidate. We are slowly beginning to close the gap on our new positions across the district, so I wanted to give a quick update on where we are with that. At the elementary school, there are 4 open positions, but all are actively interviewing, and our admin team at that school feels quite good about where they are and feels that they'll be completing their interview process and closing these open positions within the next few weeks. At NIS, we have 3 open positions, but again, same, all are actively interviewing. At CPS, we have 6 open positions, so we are working on a strong recruitment campaign for those positions, and 2 of those happen to be language positions. So if anyone knows a Spanish teacher, please let us know. At the high school, we have 4 open positions, but we are also interviewing for those at this time. And finally, in central office, as I mentioned, we are still on the hunt for a Curriculum Director of Humanities, but we have a promising candidate. We have added ZipRecruiter to our list of search engines for hiring, and we have an upcoming job fair at the end of July, so we hope that both of those are going to provide us with more candidates and be able to find those positions that are a little bit harder to fill. So we're hopeful that that's what we will be seeing in the next few weeks. We have some announcements on professional teacher status. I wanted to report that we are awarding professional teacher status, or as we call it, PTS, to 10 educators across the district for this year. PTS is given to teachers who have successfully completed 3 years under the license under which they teach. They have completed their mentoring and induction program, and they have received proficiency in their educator evaluations across 3 years. So we have 1 at NES, 8 at NIS. We don't have any at CPS or NHS, and then we have 1 in the district. There is no rhyme or reason as to why certain schools have teachers who are receiving PTS and those who do not. It all depends on their dates of hire and how long they've been with the district under their license. So we do have several new educators who will eventually receive PTS once they have gotten out of their certification with emergency licensure and into a regular initial or provisional licensure pattern. So we are looking forward to offering them and providing them with professional teacher status when they've completed those their licensure there. So I do congratulate these 10 teachers and look forward to working with them going forward. We are currently enjoying a district leadership team retreat. We have completed day 2 of our 3-day retreat. Things are going just great. Yesterday we worked with Joy Kelly, who is a fantastic presenter. She's a high school principal in Iowa and a representative of the Casas and Associates group, working with educators around culture. So we really learned a lot about school and district culture, and she helped us do some team building activities and gave us some support with building team dynamics. Also provided us with excellent advice about important relationships, strengthening culture across our system, so it was a great day yesterday. Today, we had the pleasure of working with Katie Novak from Novak Educators, who is right here with us, and she will be presenting later today on the multi-tiered system of support needs assessment that we did. And we've been so lucky to have her with us for now year 3, so we're very excited to be continuing the work with her, as she's been such a wonderful influence on us and really has gotten us moving in the right direction with universal design for learning for all of our students. And she's working with us today and tomorrow on our district improvement plan, which you will see hopefully a draft of coming up soon. I did want to, I too have 2 important congratulations to give. One is to Dr. Lepre, who has received the Fred Rogers Good Neighbor Award from the Dreamland. So congratulations to you, Dr. Lepre, for that award. We are thrilled to have that. Another thing on your list, which is great.
I'll have to bite my tongue when I go through 5 corners now.
And finally, we wanted to take a moment to appreciate one of our team who is leaving us, and this is her last school committee meeting. This is Diane O'Neill. As you are aware, we are saying goodbye to Diane, who has served as the Director of Facilities and Grounds for over 10 years in our school district and has worked multiple years prior to that, I believe 13, correct, Diane, at the town prior?
No, I'm 18.
18 total, okay. So we want you to know that we will miss you very much, but we also want to wish you all the best in your next adventure, and we have a little something for you.
That I would like to say after. It is important to me to thank some people as I head into my retirement. I have been working here at the schools for 10 years, 18 years total as a town of Nantucket employee. The Nantucket schools is a very special place to me. For me, it is special because of the people who I have had the opportunity to work with, the challenges I faced, the accomplishments I was a part of, and the enormous number of lessons I learned during my time here. None of the work we do in life is done alone, and I will forever be grateful to the people who helped me and stood by me along the way. I would like to thank my family and my close friends for supporting me and listening to me complain when things weren't going as expected, which, if I really think about it and I'm honest about it, I probably drove them crazy at times. I would like to thank Mike Kozort for believing in me and giving me the opportunity here at the Nantucket Public Schools. This position literally changed my life. He was a wonderful mentor, but more importantly, he is my friend. I'd like to thank my teammates here at NPS. I honestly do not think folks know how lucky we are here to have the amazing, hardworking facilities and grounds team that we have. I am a true believer of teamwork, and I consistently say we are all in this together. I could not be prouder of the work they all do and the camaraderie they have for one another. Longevity speaks volumes for the love they have for this place. We just celebrated Francisco Darris for his 25 years of service. But we have so many more longevity stories. In 2023, we celebrate Arnaldo Tejada with 27 years. Jorge Vivas and Maximo Tejada with 20 years, Saul Vivas with 19 years, Joe Perry and Oscar Mayano with 17 years, Alita Tejada and Lucia Lemus with 16 years, Barry Malo with 15 years, Dimo Boychev with 13 years, and my replacement, Chip Clooney, with 10 years here. These are the people who make things happen for the students and staff, and they love doing it. I'd like to thank Beth, the school committee, and the leadership team for their support, friendship, and understanding over the years. It is not always easy to understand the roles each of us play here to make everything work, but understanding where each of us is coming from is key to any worthwhile relationship. As a leadership member, I can honestly say that was sometimes the hardest thing to do, but probably the most important. At the end of the day, we are really all just trying to do our jobs. I am, of course, proud of my accomplishments here at NPS and my accomplishments when working for the town. In all honesty, it filled my heart with joy and gratitude to be a part of those projects and to see them through to fruition. But the thing I am most grateful for is the relationships I have with all of you. I am leaving you with the best team you could ever ask for. I am deeply grateful to Michelle Krummer for all of his hard work, his never-ending help, his attention to detail, and for not rolling his eyes every time I ask him to help me with Google Docs. I still don't get it. Dimo Boychev, Barry Malo, and Joe Perry are all incredibly talented and hardworking leaders of their own teams. And last but certainly not least, my replacement, Chip Clooney. You could not be in better hands. Thank you all for everything. I will miss you.
Thank you, Diane. You will be missed. Are there any questions for Beth? No? No questions?
If I can just say again, Diane, you have been so instrumental to our to us, and if we don't say it, I'm sending you a big hug. I know you have a lot going on with family as well right now, which is very exciting. Her son is getting married in very short time this week, so just sending you all the best wishes as you move on to the next thing. So
Thank you, Diane. Alrighty, moving on to presentations and discussions of issues of interest to the committee. So MTSS needs assessment. Katie Novak.
Okay. So I'm going to share with you what the goals of this very short presentation are. The first thing is that the millions of viewers right now will know what MTSS is when we use that term, what we mean by that. The next is to think about the big overarching recommendations from the MTSS needs assessment, which I completed in partnership with the district administrative team over the course of the past year. And then we're going to talk about how this will potentially impact future planning while honoring all of the work you've already done and really thinking about what needs to happen next to reach your vision of being more inclusive, more equitable, and to create a space where everyone feels like they belong. So the needs assessment process was really thinking about what are the strengths of your multi-tiered system of support, or MTSS, and what are your opportunities for growth. And the document is incredibly long. It's about 50 pages. But the first question is, what is MTSS? And I like to break the acronym in half. So you have your multi-tiers on one side, and I'll give you an analogy to think about those. And then you have your system, which is everything you do to support it. So your multi-tiers are essentially, what is the universal experience that we want every child to have when they are a part of the Nantucket Schools community? So what does first best instruction look like? So think of tier one as the dentist. I'm sure all of you want everyone in your lives to go to the dentist for that best first dental care. And as I was working with the admin team today, I was sharing that all four of my grandparents, when I met them, they were only in their 60s or 70s probably, all of them had dentures. And it was because dental care just wasn't a universal access point for a lot of people. And now my in-laws and my parents are in their 70s and 80, and they still have their teeth because they had access to this first best toothbrushing, fluoride, flossing. And there's really no way to intervention your way out of not having access to the dentist. Now, all of you probably also at some point maybe needed an orthodontist or needed an endodontist, so you got a referral for someone you know and love to get braces. But that happened in addition to going to the dentist, okay? It didn't replace the dentist. So I want you to think about what would have to change for every single student to have access to a general education classroom with their peers that allowed them to work towards grade level standards and be included, but in a really meaningful way where they and their families felt like they belonged. So what does that classroom have to look like to challenge the student who needs the most challenge, to support the student who needs the most support, knowing that it's kind of like a moving fluid target because our needs are always changing. So how do we create a classroom that like works for everyone and teachers feel prepared to meet the needs of everyone, recognizing that some kids need a lot more? So what are all of the ingredients? What is the system of support that you need in order to do that well? So teachers need to design classrooms in like a very different way, and they need a lot more support. So a lot more professional learning, a lot more opportunities for coaching, them working together in co-planning. But there's things like really innovative classroom spaces. So you have to think about technology, you have to think about facilities in order to create a space that I can be included. I have access to grade level learning. I have teachers who feel prepared to like really connect, families who understand the value of that work. What do we have to do? We have to change the way we communicate with families. We might have to shift schedules. We might have to think about long-term implications like how do we get more affordable housing for employees who are a part of this community? All of those system changes will ultimately result in creating an environment that works really well for all kids, all teachers, and all families. And we can say to families who move in, your child gets to be exactly who they are, and they're going to be really successful here. And we're going to make sure that in addition to being a part of a classroom community with like age peers, they're also going to get the support they need with mental health, with community-based learning, with athletics, with technology. And so multi-tiered system of support is literally everything you're doing. This is not a pivot away from the last 4 years of action planning. It's just essentially saying, what are we doing really well to set us up for a foundation of meeting the needs of all kids, all staff members, all families, and what do we still need to do to get closer to that vision? So the idea of creating a needs assessment are what does the research say are all the necessary ingredients that you need in order to have the potential to build that system that's going to work really, really well. And if you were reading a recipe, you might have your dry ingredients and then your wet ingredients and then your ingredients for frosting on a cake. But when we talk about improvement planning and improvement science, we generally talk about these three buckets, which is competency drivers. How do we build the skill set of everyone doing the work? This includes custodians, tech integration specialists, educators. The implementation drivers, that's more of the nuts and bolts. Do we have a high quality curriculum that is culturally responsive? Do we have devices with like a really strong comprehensive infrastructure? Do we have the right data to determine, are we doing the work that we really want to do? Like, how do we measure that? It also includes things like just curriculum and classroom spaces. And then the last are the leadership drivers, which is all about creating a culture, and that's what Joy Kelly talked about yesterday, that really connects families and the community and educators and students. The work is about relationships. We're serving people's babies. We're serving the community's future. And how do we build this shared connection and shared vision around that? So in looking through the research, it will say like, these are the drivers that we know will result in increased student outcomes, increased student achievement, increased student attendance, increased student feelings of belonging and balance and wellness. And so when we look at these, there were some that stood out as being really exemplary. They're already in place. And then there's lots of opportunities for growth, which will never accomplish. So the goal of meeting the needs of all students is ongoing because you always have new students with new needs. So let's look at some of the exemplary things first. One of the terms that's used a lot in district strategic planning is cascading systems. So I work with schools all over the world, and sometimes I'll read a district improvement plan and a school improvement plan and a department inclusion, and I'm like, they don't even have anything in common. I don't even feel like I'm in the same space. So one of the really important practices is to have a shared district strategy that impacts the school and department strategies that then impact the goals that administrators and educators have for themselves. And it almost like cascades down like a really beautiful fountain. And in many districts, my first recommendation is you have to change the culture so schools really want to align with the district vision. And that's already there. That your past practice is very clearly like, this is the district goal, and this is how this school is going to work toward it, and this is how this department is going to work toward it. And in some districts, it becomes a real big challenge because schools are so used to their own autonomy that it's really difficult to say, how do we come together as a learning community and say we have to be moving in the same direction? So that is clearly already in place. The next is, a part of your vision is to make sure that every stakeholder feels really seen and heard. And so a big part of that is, how do we create opportunities for people to share their experience? Certainly there's lots of ways to do this, through focus groups, through open comment periods like what you're doing this evening, but also through surveys. And I always recommend triangulating survey results. So ask the same questions to your students, your educators, your leaders, and your family and community members. And most of the time, the majority of the time, a district will say, we're not going to do that. It would be too demoralizing for our educators to hear what our students have to say. Or, leaders aren't in a space right now. And like this entire team, principals, department heads, they're like, yes, like we want to hear from people. So that's usually a very big barrier to say, like, you have to listen to what people have to say, because my perception of someone's needs might not align with their true needs. And so a part of the needs assessment was really saying, what do parents report as being needs? What do students report as being needs? And that creates a baseline and an opportunity for growth and more opportunities. But the willingness, that's a hard nut to crack, and it's already cracked. And the last is you want to be super transparent with your community, and when you're hiring new teachers, that if you're teaching 10th grade science, this is what students have to learn, this is what they have to know, this is what they have to be able to do, this is how we define high quality instructional materials, this is what makes a valuable assessment. If you don't have that, as a new teacher 20 years ago, I can tell you, it is terrible to suddenly say, you're teaching 5 sections of 100 students apiece, good luck, go make your own curriculum. And you want to be super clear about, this is our curriculum. This is what all students have to know and do. And then it's so much easier to connect teachers for co-planning, to build in opportunities for community-based learning, a lot of that sharing. And that is years long of a process to create that articulated curriculum. And that work has been done. It was a part of the NEASC report, which is the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. They require it for accreditation, but the entire district did it. And it was really only a requirement for the high school. So that also shows that we want to be able to ensure that there's vertical alignment, that 3rd grade can guarantee, like, this is what 2nd graders are going to come away with. And when you don't have that, it's really difficult to create a consistent, challenging experience for kids. So let's talk about our opportunities for growth. Again, these are in these 3 buckets. And what's so interesting is you are doing all of the work of building a multi-tiered system without ever mentioning MTSS, which may make it seem like you're doing something new, and you're not. So just being really clear that building a system that works for all kids and ensuring that all kids get what they need when they need it is a part of the work you have always been doing. It's just being a little bit more transparent about the language of the research as you are building this system. The next recommendation is to continue to ask those survey questions. If you go into the report, you'll see that in every stakeholder group, there were at least 40% of people who felt that they didn't belong. So that's true of leadership, of educators, of families, of students. And so we're looking at, okay, well, that's a baseline. That's where we're starting. And if your vision is everyone feels like they belong, seen, heard, then there's this huge opportunity to use that as a measurement year after year. And are we going to go from 60% to 100%? No, but growth is celebration because we're moving in the right direction. There was also a really clear message from families that they would like to have more transparent communication from a website that's easier to navigate, that really embraces multiple languages, and that they were more aware of the expectations of what does communication look like at elementary versus middle versus high school. There were a number of families that said it was very discrepant if you had multiple kids at multiple levels. And what is the expectation for family involvement in communication? How much do we share with the community? So that's something that we'll articulate in future planning. The idea of universal design for learning is essentially that we all need different things. And if we're going to design an opportunity that works for everyone, that challenges students and supports students, we have to give them choice. So let's say that we want all students to learn the process of photosynthesis. There are lots of ways to learn about photosynthesis. It could be a Spanish video, it could be a text in English, it could be a teacher, instruction. And when we provide universally designed learning, we provide a very firm goal with flexible means and then allow students to make a choice. So think about in a classroom saying to students, I'm going to do about 10 minutes talking about why it's important for you to know about photosynthesis, and then you get to decide how you want to learn about these stages. So which is going to work best for you today and why? And if you look at the student comments in the needs assessment report, they're so beautifully aligned, whether it was 4th graders, 7th graders, or 10th graders. They really feel like they want a say. They want more choice. We also talked about scheduling. There are so many different things you're trying to do, and you might have to reallocate time to be able to do that really well. So, how do we ensure that we're providing students with opportunities to self-regulate and have some balance and downtime? How are we going to ensure that teachers are going to work together to design a lesson that will truly work for all learners? So as a former general education teacher, I can tell you my lessons were much more outstanding if I planned them with a special educator and an EL specialist and maybe somebody who was a coach for gifted and talented youth and an adjustment counselor. Because they could say to me, have you thought about the fact that that might be really challenging for a student? And I'd say, oh gosh, no, how would I change that? How would I eliminate that barrier? What option could I provide? So it's not just about a professional learning community with 3 7th grade English teachers together, because we all have the same area of expertise. It's about how can you carve out time for people with very different area of expertise to help each other create the best learning environment for all students. And then lastly, you have so much community involvement. Even just today, we were at the Chamber of Commerce. They were so wonderful. AC and coffee and notepads, they were wonderful. And we were talking about that it's amazing and maybe inconsistent. And what does a community partnership look like? Are there norms for the partnership? Can community partners come on a consistent basis to these meetings and share about the partnership and how it's mutually beneficial? It's not just the community supporting the schools. The schools have an incredible capacity to support the community. And so how do we make that more transparent and more consistent? Competency is all about building the skill set. So you have educators who feel prepared to meet the needs of a very diverse and changing world and population. So we really want to focus here on when we're hiring educators, what does that look like? When we're supporting new hires and existing hires, what does that look like? So being really clear about once we have an employee, what is the support that all of them get? And then in that multiple tiers, what can we provide if they're struggling, if they're feeling burnt out? What's that additional support look like? Also really focusing on students being more involved in the learning environment, much more active learning. We want students much more doing in classrooms instead of viewing. And so like, what does that look like? And then the other pieces here are really being clear about what is the type of support that educators need so they feel prepared to meet the needs of all kids. But essentially, what are we going to provide so that they can do that? Because, you know, a couple of half days a year is not going to truly transform practice. It's all about how often are they going to be co-planning in a PLC? How often did they get to work with a tech integration specialist? How often are counselors, you know, the entire counseling staff really involved in looking at lesson planning and saying, those are going to be really significant barriers. And so how do we work together? And so having a professional development plan that focuses on that, and really helping everyone understand, what does inclusive practice look like, right? How do you change lessons so a child who needs an incredible amount of challenge can be challenged in the same learning space as a student who needs support? And a lot of that is going to come back to this providing options and choices. And it's also going to be about using data to create flexible groups of students to say, even though I gave you all these options and choices, you four are still struggling. So I want to pull you for a small group so I can give you some really targeted feedback and some strategies, and we're gonna address this. We're gonna get up there. So this is, again, it's very comprehensive, but right now, internationally, educators are feeling really demoralized, really overwhelmed. COVID did a number on the skill set of teachers and what they were expected to be able to do literally overnight. Like March 18th to March 19th. Like, surprise, you're now an online instructor. And we know that the trends of mental illness, of trauma, of dysregulation it's astronomical. And we haven't provided the support to catch up with the needs of the kids. And so that's going to be a part of moving forward as well. And lastly, I think it's really important to be really transparent about who does not have access to first best instruction and start thinking about why. Thinking about what do we value from assessment and data, and how do we ensure that is not a compliance task. The reason to collect data is to change practices. I have this information and it's going to change what I do next. And if it's not that, then there's an opportunity to change those procedures. Also, the idea of, is our curriculum really challenging? Does it really align to grade level standards? And is it universally designed? Meaning, is it designed in a way that students have opportunities to choose how they're going to learn, to choose how they're going to share what they know, so that teachers have the data they need to create groups to be responsive? I mean, the task is enormous, which is why the support also needs to be enormous. And then lastly, continuing to develop that curriculum so that we can guarantee that regardless of where a student is placed, they will have the same opportunities to access the best of what is available in second grade. So best practices need to be shared among teachers. Again, that comes back to the importance of professional learning communities. It comes back to the importance of consistent expectations. And one of the things that we talked about quite a bit is it's not only about the technical changes. We all know that we can post a curriculum to a website. That does not mean that every classroom is yet aligned to that curriculum. So you have this technical change of, here's our new schedule, here's the new curriculum we adopted, here's our new written curriculum, but then there's all that adaptive work to really build the skill set of teachers to change those practices, which will take a little more time than just posting that technical. So it's not overnight success, but it is going slow to go fast once we have that adaptive change. So again, our objectives were understanding that a multi-tiered system of support is all of the work that you're doing to create a school system that supports all families, all staff, all students in your community. You're not pivoting, you're just aligning with the research-based language. The next is recognizing you have incredible strength and there's opportunities to grow, and those will be integrated into future strategy, of which we're currently drafting. And ultimately, we can create a crosswalk where it says, this is the work you've already done, these were some of the recommendations, and this is how it kind of turned into a goal for the future that aligns explicitly with the vision that you've all created. So that is the long and short of the needs assessment. And if you want to go in and read the 50 pages, that would be lovely. Are there any questions at all?
Tim?
I want to read the 50 pages.
Okay.
Chantal?
I did read what was shared with us. Naturally, I took far too many notes on it. I suppose it's not so much a question, but more of a statement. Having gone through the school system, I guess it was a little disheartening to still see that a lot of the issues that families were facing are still happening. But it was also encouraging to see that strides have been made to address some of those, and I'm eager to see how this information will, of course, impact how we go forward.
Thank you. I'm just curious about how it's tracked. Right now you're working with administrators and not faculty.
I have worked with faculty supporting them to create their scope and sequence documents.
Well, I remember seeing you at the start of school last year.
Yep.
And I was very motivated. So I'm just, because, I mean, you do have to get that buy-in, right? So I'm just wondering, what are the sort of practices to encourage that? I know it's a tough question.
No. So I think a lot of it is, if you can model in professional learning the same environment and experience that you want students to experience, there's like this vicarious opportunity to say, wow, that worked better for me. To have the option to either read this or watch this video, to have the option to work together or to work on my own. And so I think this idea of creating firm goals and flexible means is to really support administrators to model these practices in faculty meetings, also to provide feedback as a part of the existing educator evaluation system. So, if I know that the value is, this idea of like all students participating, and I walk into a classroom and a teacher asks a question and I see a lot of students being quiet, I might say, if that's a really important assessment practice and you really need to hear from every student, we have to know that some students will really struggle with the language and or just the anxiety of having to share in front of class, raising your hand. And it might be really great if you posed the question and also translated the question and then put in a timer for 5 minutes and said, would you rather talk about this? And I can kind of overhear and use that as an informal assessment, or would you rather write it and take time to look at a translator and translate it so I can get a better sense of where everyone is at so that I can make groups for tomorrow? Right? If you're getting that feedback, you're like, oh, I mean, that wouldn't, like maybe I could try that. So I think some of it is going to be observing. I think some of it is going to be getting feedback. And I also want to honor that there are some educators who are definitely already implementing these practices, and a big shift will be a part of the EdEval system is really encouraging teachers to model. So how do you get exemplary teachers to model their lessons or open their classrooms? Because I think sometimes we don't know if it can be done because we haven't seen it done yet. And it is being done in the district, and we just have to be more transparent about really encouraging and elevating the spaces where we are seeing this happening as a demonstration of impact that it's possible.
Thank you. So in other words, observing others in the classroom, and that is currently happening? I'm not...
We have not, I'm going to talk about from my perspective, I am not sure that there are lab classrooms yet for Universal Design for Learning specifically. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
I can speak to that if I may through the chair. We support and really encourage teachers to be able to see each other. We do that in with our mentoring program. We particularly offer opportunities for mentees and mentors to work together. For other teachers in general to build on practices, we are in the process of putting more of that together through invitations to the classroom. It has not been, in my tenure here, that has not been a practice, and so I really want to see that becoming a regular practice. And it does take some time, and it takes some comfort and trust that needs to be built, and this goes back to culture. So as we build our school cultures where people feel that they belong, they are a little bit more willing to take a risk and allow colleagues to come in and see them teach without any sort of evaluation, but it's important, and we want to make sure that we build that culture so that people do feel that they can open their doors, or that they can say, I want to go see someone else to get some great ideas from somebody else. So we're working on that as a leadership team in our schools to make sure that our teachers feel comfortable and can do that, because it's time, and we want to make sure, particularly with these kinds of shifts that we're seeing, that everybody gets that support.
Right.
So. Coaching is another piece. We do have an SEI coach for our middle and high school. We had hoped to have hired an SEI coach for grades 3 to 8, so had a little overlap with the middle school. But unfortunately, we are struggling to find that coach, and we would love to be able to implement more coaches going forward. This budget didn't support that, but we certainly are looking forward to our future budgets being able to support more instructional coaching, because we see that as an absolute necessity going forward.
So instructional coaching, generally you have a coaching cycle, which is, let's say that I'm a coach and you're an educator. We'll sit down and we'll talk about what is something that you really want to improve in your practice. And then we come up with a goal together, we co-plan, and then I teach it to your students so you can observe me, give me feedback, see it done. Then I come back and observe you trying it. I give you feedback. We reflect on how you can make that more a part of your practice. So it's a really beautiful cycle when you have that culture. The other really unique challenge of the past 2 years everywhere in the universe is that generally these observations happen during prep time, of which teachers have been using to cover other people's classes. So even in districts that have had the culture, they haven't had the time, because people were having to cover other places when they could have gone and observed a colleague.
Right. So you will come in back to us how frequently through the year?
I think that is yet to be determined. That is
okay.
TBA.
All right. Thank you. But last year, though, so I saw you at the beginning of the year, and then you worked for
I
professional
came about every
development.
6 weeks last year.
Yeah, okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
My
Any more
pleasure.
questions?
Thank you so much for having me. And today we hung out with your team. It's amazing. I think you're going to be really excited about just the integration of the vision that you've all collectively created, and how incredibly aligned it is with all of the work that is valuable to your own community. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to committee discussions and votes to be taken. And we're moving down because we did not have a chance to look at the minutes, so we're moving down to transfers and invoices. And
We have that.
I don't have that, do I?
It is right here. So it just needs a motion to approve.
Okay. Vote to approve payroll and accounts payable warrant.
So it just needs
So moved.
May I have a motion to approve? Second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And subcommittee work group report.
I'm happy to mention that we have that we had a scholarship since our last meeting. We had a scholarship subcommittee meeting that supported the scholarships that were provided at graduation. I don't know if that was reported on in our last.
I don't think we did.
Committee
No,
meeting,
but
so I'll add that.
Great.
Negotiations continue, so we will leave it at that. And I think that and this will come up in our next piece, so I'll let you move on after, if anybody else has any subcommittee work to share. But
No, I have Cape Cod Collaborative will be meeting, I think, within 2 weeks, so I'll report on that. Obviously, you reported on our scholarship committee and our negotiations, and I don't think there's anything else.
So I'm happy to report a little bit on the agenda for the next committee meeting, and I did want to request that if we could please move our full meeting, which we have scheduled on August 15th, if we could move that to August 29th. We have some folks who would be presenting at that time who will not be available. So what I would like to suggest is, if you'll notice on the horizon here, there is a little red line at the bottom of today's meeting date that says week of July 25th, school committee retreat. If we could utilize the August 15th date for the school committee retreat where we get together, and I have some ideas about what we would do, particularly looking at our own goals, because by then we will have determined our district improvement plan, so we may be able to bring that in and have a chance to look at that together as part of the retreat, and then use August 29th as our full meeting, where we will have all of the appropriate people able to present. So if that is a possibility, and this group with, of course, the agreement of our other two members, if you're okay with that, then we'll set that up. So
Yeah, works.
Does that work?
It works for me.
great. So the 15th will be a retreat, and the 29th will be a full meeting.
Great.
And we'll have a location for the 15th, and that I'll share with you in an agenda as well.
Okay.
So, and then, so in our next meeting, that will be our retreat, and then the 29th, you can see here that we will be looking at superintendent goals, food services, updates, fourth quarter budget, and then some work with authorizing student accounts and potentially a checking account. And then we will be presenting, hopefully on the 29th, the NPS new employee handbook, which
Okay.
which is long coming.
Okay.
So, and that's it.
All right. So, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
All right, thank you.